welcome to another episode here on Application Development Today. My name is Don Jackson. I'm your host. And just as a reminder, this is kind of a conversational type podcast. We are not here to talk about, specific products or try to sell you anything. This is really about talking about concepts and where we see the market going. So with me today, I've got Mr. Oren Ziv and Mr. Udi Weinberg. So Oren, if you want to just introduce yourself real quick.
Yeah, hi everybody. I am a product manager in Micro Focus for ALM Octane and our VSM platform called Value Edge here at Micro Focus.
And Udi, if you want to just introduce yourself.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Udi Weinberg. I'm a director of product management in charge of what we call the lifecycle and portfolio management, including products such as ALM Quality Center, Octane, Value Edge, PPM, and some others.
Wonderful. So the episode today is episode 3 and the titled, Where Does AI Fit Into My World? So Oren and Udi, I would consider you guys to be, kind of experts in the life cycle and value stream management part of the world. So my question to you guys is where do you see, what challenges are we seeing in the marketplace that you guys think that AI can potentially help with that?
So I think the short answer, everywhere. the more elaborate answer would be around a couple of items. First of all, I would say the huge amounts of data. In today's modern world, whether you're doing everything on the same platform or consolidating information from several data sources, at some point you will be drowning in data. The amount of data, the different types of data starting from the strategy and planning and agile down to the execution of the development teams and the testing and the operations. So many sources of data, so many differences between the data. It's really hard for a human being to capture everything, definitely not in real time, identify the trends, identify the places which are risky, and this is where we need AI to come in to help. So that's one. The other one I would say is around optimization. And that is true for everything, starting from creating assets, whether we are creating specs from the high-level epics and descriptions and breaking them down to features and user stories and tasks, creating test automation, recommending on the areas to test, understanding the coverage, everything around that. On how to do it quicker and also get the feedback quicker and getting the alerts on risks and stuff like that. That's, again, another place where AI will play a major part shortly.
Yeah, when you talk about optimization, I think about stuff that I've done in my own career where I've taken these optimization efforts. I had, for example, back in the day, I had an automated regression test suite that I had for an application that for where I worked. And it took about 65 to 70 hours to run this automated test suite. It was a robust regression test of it, and of course, yeah, it could run overnight in our lab. So it was a couple of days, 2.5 days that we get our results back. And then I did an optimization effort. I took it upon myself to do that, and I spent probably 2 to 3 weeks. Optimizing the script, breaking it apart so that I could take advantage of distributed testing, and got to the point where that same automated regression suite now could get the results back in 2.5 hours, right? By breaking it up, where it made sense and stuff like that. So is that kind of the optimization that you're talking about when you were talking about testing?
I think that's only part of it, because when you're talking about testing, you first of all start with what to test. I want to test only the things that are changed. I want to test only the things that are risky. I want to test the things that have some kind of dependency with other things that were changed. And sometimes, and in my background, I was a QA manager for many, many years. Sometimes you don't want to take the risk. Sometimes, yes, it's a good practice to go to the development and ask them, okay, you changed this part. Does it have any impact on that part? And say, no, nothing. No, don't worry. And after the third time it breaks, you start to test everything.
Don't worry always makes me worry.
Exactly. And I think this becomes super important in an agile world and where organizations are going through the agile transformation. Everything becomes much quicker, and the agility in terms of identifying and spotting on the real problems is becoming very critical. And here AI can tremendously help in really identifying trends, identifying correlations between problems, identify where the organization needs to improve faster than ever, because this is the expectation of the market, being fast to market, understand where the problems, how data points are correlated to one another. And if we want to take just one example, and you talked about testing, then I'll give you one of the examples that we are at Micro Focus are actually using kind of day in day out, is the story of defects that are leaking into production. So of course, the worst thing for a QA organization or a quality delivery is a defect that is not really tracked on the lab on as part of our test cycle, and we would want to really drill down into the root cause of these problems. So AI can read through thousands of defects, thousands of data points and fields and properties and attributes of various defects, and highlight what are the trends, help us quickly understand where we need to invest more resources, quality effort, test coverage, etc. So just as an example of how AI can really help agility to be even more agile, I would say.
All right, so I'm gonna play devil's advocate for a moment here, right? So, because I hear this, I hear this from a lot of people that aren't familiar with AI. Isn't AI just another one of these buzzwords? You know, what are we really just talking about analytics and just getting faster and better, analytics that were in there, or is there something actually that AI is different? You know, how can AI what is AI given us?
So I think it would be harder to answer these questions like 4 or 5 months ago, but with the introduction of ChatGPT, I think and all its kind of family, whether it's DALI or Midjourney or others, um, it really was amazing to see it. I was monitoring this world closely. I was looking at ChatGPT 2 when it came out and things that he did, but the leapfrog that we got with GPT 3 was amazing, and I think pretty much everybody with a bit of a technical sense or understanding of this word really understand that this is something completely different. This is kind of, and I think, when you told me this, when you were talking to one of our developers, it's like talking to a really, really, really smart guy, really, really smart person who knows everything, who read everything, and can, at the click of a button, can just access this information and give you the best answer. And I agree. Maybe a year or two ago, it was mainly more about how you manage big data, how you get the correlations from this amount of data. But that's just the starting point. And I think what we are seeing today, the fact that you can go and with minimal effort, I would even say, teach your system on how to break things from epics to features, console them whether you're covering or test covering the right things or not, or asking them to write you a song. That's another thing. But it's here. It's definitely not a buzzword. And it's not just about that. We are starting to see things also in the automation world about image recognition. The fact that we can teach the computer to think like a human and to recognize common symbols such as a search button or a shopping cart. They will look the same whether your site is in English, Chinese, or in Hebrew. And we, as people, as persons, we know how to identify it quite quickly. Today, also, the computer know how to do it. And I think this is another place where we teach the AI, we teach the machine to think and to look at things, not just to think, but also to look at things the same way that we do. It's still not going to replace us tomorrow, but it's becoming scary, I have to say.
Well, on the topic of not replacing us tomorrow, so I just a personal thing, right? I was actually in ChatGPT last week, and I was chatting with it, trying to see what it could help me with. Could it optimize something? And I asked it the question, and this is going to be a little product centric. I asked it. I said, so what's the difference between QTP and UFT, right? And it gave me an answer that was mostly correct. And I replied and I said, well, not only that, but UFT also gives you 5 million virtual users of LoadRunner for free. And it popped up and said, oh, you're right. So sorry. I'm like, wait a second. Whoa, 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 whoa. Let's not go crazy here. I think there's there's the difference between training when you're training the model and versus when it's, running in production, because boy, you don't want it to, an obvious lie that we supply to it. We don't want it to take as gospel truth and then start working on it. So I'd like to drill in a little bit. So where do you see? So we talked more broadly about it. Where do you see specifically in value stream management? So we talked about value stream management in episode 1 of application development today. So where do you think we're going to see the biggest value in the short term, and then a longer term vision around how AI can help us in value stream management?
Maybe I'll relay this to the previous question, where if AI is just a buzzword. I think the real test, if you will, for AI is it going to help? Is it going to be a meaningful part of VSM? Is with the predictability. I mean, if AI can help us redefine features or redefine products that we work on, or suggest what to test on this. This is in today's world, after the introduction of GPT, is kind of obvious. Yes, it can do all that. It can rearrange things for us. It can even write code for us, or write features for us. But the question will be really around whether its predictions are going to be accurate or not. And because if you continuously fail and get wrong predictions of the system, then you would say, okay, why do I need all that? I'll just go and talk to my dev managers, my QA managers, or any subject matter expert. So the real test for that will be our ability to train the system, and for the algorithms to get into the level where we can get good predictions. And this takes me to what we can do with VSM. So it can really widely contribute to our ability to provide value through our products, through our value streams, in terms of analyzing problems, identifying problems. We talked about the ability to really realize and put the spotlight on problems. This will surely become a very important part of the VSM delivery, of our ability to deliver faster. This goes pretty much. This is pretty much straightforward. The real question would be, as I said, whether the system or the AI algorithm will be able to raise the right flags on the right time based on a prediction. For example, hey, your value stream is not going to converge towards the release that you have planned. You have a problem here and there. You need to fix it now so you won't have a problem tomorrow. And I think this is something that hopefully we'll be able to do in the world of testing or R&D or value stream management pretty soon. So I'm sure vendors are working on that. And
Well, I think exactly what you're talking about. So being able to take not only analyzing the data, but being able to predict out, right? So it's one of the things that we do as humans fairly well, right? Is we can recognize patterns, and then and we can predict out, the patterns, right? So if you have your burn down chart, your average Scrum burn down chart, right? And you look at how quickly you're burning down versus when you have your release date, you can pretty quickly draw that line, even without physically drawing the line, right? You can draw that line in your head and go, uh-oh, I'm not going to make it. But the question then is, well, that's great that I'm not going to make it. What do I need to change? right? And there's so many factors when you think about in development, right? Do I need to, bring in a couple more developers? Do I need is there waste that that the team is running into right now that if I adjust something, I can eliminate this waste, right? How do I remediate that waste? Is it that we're doing a bad job estimating our feature stories, right? All that kind of information. So I think you're right. If AI can help us do that prediction, maybe we should trademark a new product name and call it prognosticator or something like that. But if AI can help us do that, I think that would be really exciting. I think about throughout my career, having the big things that we really had to focus on were things like estimating a project, right? So back in the frankly in the 90s, I remember a project that I had where they came to me and they said, how long is it going to take you to fully test this application, right, for these changes? And I got the scope of the changes, and I said, and I did all my analysis, and I came back and I said, it's going to take us 28 days. And they said, what do you mean 28 days? I go, well, there's a minimum of 4 cycles, right? And then you have overnight jobs that have to run that can't be run outside of overnight. And then you had all this, and I showed them, and they said, no, I don't think that's going to. And it ended up taking 27 and a half days to get the test done. And to be able to analyze that and be able to predict that, because it took me like 3 days to come up with my estimate of 28 days, right? So 10% of the time I just spent just doing the analysis and prediction. If the computer can help me do that, would be fantastic. And I think that's just one small example.
And it will do it in 10 seconds, more or less.
Yeah, exactly. Doing it in 10 seconds. So, Udi, you brought up earlier Chat GPT, right? So, one of my questions that I get that comes to mind, and that people and I talk about, is how has AI evolved inside of recent human history? So you talked about just 6 months ago, the answer might be a little different and harder to answer. What, besides Chat GPT, which is getting a lot of press recently, what other things have you seen that has evolved in recent human history from an AI perspective?
Oh, recent human history. Well, yeah, I think that ChatGPT and OpenAI in general definitely take the front row here. But the things that we are seeing with, producing all kinds of imagery, or taking it everywhere now, I think these are, we're really just scratching the surface here. And to put it on a scale, I think that what happened with AI over the last, let's say, 6 months is equivalent of what was done with the internet in 20 years. So moving from, I wouldn't say the modem, but very something like static pages and low bandwidth to something crazy, and this is just starting. So and every day something new comes. I think we're just at the very start of this. It's really too early to say where we're heading, and the pace of things that is happening is crazy. I don't recall anything like that in the technology era.
Well, you talk about pace, right? So the pace is something that I wanna drill into a little bit, because I've had some of these conversations when we were talking about AI object detection, and we were talking about generations of the AI model. So how does the AI evolution differ from the time that from what we perceive in human perception, right? So how does that differ? So you talked about just in 6 months, how does what do you think this is a factor thing? Is it an exponential thing? How quickly
It's
does AI
definitely
evolve?
it's definitely exponential, and the more, I would say, cool it is to play with the system, the faster it will work, because every time you ask a question, or every time you generate an image and you say, okay, regenerate or adjust, or that's fine, keep it the same it is, you're training the system. And the same way that we are talking about it, I assume hundreds and thousands of people or tens of thousands of people are discussing it right now, and employing more and more people to train the system. And it's kind of feeding itself. So the more data you have, the more you use it, the more you apply it to day-to-day practices, the faster it will grow. And if we got up to this point where it was kind of an academic thing, more than commercial for sure, then when you look into the future and think what will happen once the real commercial models will be applied, what will happen when they can actually start making money out of that and people will work with it in their day-to-day over tons of data, tons of information. We will work on it on VSM, and I don't know, somebody in a completely different industry will benefit from it in a way that we cannot even think about today. But I'm sure that the impact between them, like this butterfly effect, will be exponential and will impact everything.
And just like any technology leap, it looks like in 2-3 years we won't even understand how did we manage without this very smart guy that assists us. It might be on every mobile phone or anything that you'll just be able to ask your questions, whether it's professional questions. What should be the next feature I'm gonna work on, or what is the next right order for things that I'm doing in my day-to-day work, or just where should I go out tonight for dinner? So
Well, yeah, that's one that I like is hey, I've got these ingredients in my pantry. I don't want to go out. What can I make, right? What and with my flavor profile and my palate, because it's learned over time what my palate is, what can I make? I think that's great.
Yeah. Maybe it's a romantic dinner or a family dinner, or you want to impress someone, I don't know. And you just give them those hints and up you go.
So, you
I
talked
think
about what do you see in the future, right? So, I'm going to ask you guys, now I want you to take off your product management hat. I know it's a little challenging to do, but what do you see in the future? Are we on our paths to the Skynet, taking over the world, or where do you think is the future for AI in VSM, but in general as well?
Okay, so maybe one quick comment even before we talk about the future and another kind of challenge that I think exists in VSM, which is quite unique in our industry. So when you were talking about agile or quality, it was kind of limited to the same personas. Okay, so it's a QA engineer or a team leader or a VP. Okay, still in the same domain. I think that VSM brings together a lot of personas who are not necessarily collaborating in their day-to-day job, or the items that they are discussing are not necessarily the same. VSM, in theory, in the good platforms like ours, you can connect items and entities all the way from the strategic thinking of, okay, how am I going to displace my competition and gain market share, and somehow break it down to the different items and track it to the code commit or to the manual run. And this kind of linkage between everything, first of all, gives the power both to VSM and to AI with the data that it can run on top of, but also think about the personas. Suddenly you have all the very technical personas, the engineering, whether they are QA, DevOps, developers, their managers, their directors, VPs, the business persona. Everybody is conversing on the same platform, kind of on the same concept. And I think AI is here also to help and tailor the experience per persona. Because what a CIO looking for, a VP R&D, or a QA team lead, or a DevOps practitioner, they don't talk the same language, they don't look for the same things, but they need to coexist on top of the same platform. I think that here AI, and if we will manage to crack this and find the right way to use it for this kind of persona-based approach, will really help us and also help the users to get more out of the system and get the relevant information that's really relevant for them on one hand, but also show it in the broader context of the organization. So again, if I have a DevOps engineer who needs to update a Jenkins job, okay, that's his day-to-day job, but now we can see the linkage all the way up to the organizational chain and understand how everything connects together. And that's something that wasn't that possible before, I think.
Well, you talk about personas there. I've used this analogy before, as well. Is it not only is it tailoring for the right persona, but you don't want some people doing those other persona jobs, and to see that. For example, I don't want my SVP, my senior vice president, scraping through Jenkins logs. If my SVP is scraping through Jenkins jobs, then they're not looking at the big picture, right? They're not looking at the forest, right? We have people whose job it is to scrape through Jenkins logs, right? And to scrape through the pipeline and do that. I don't want my SVP doing that, right? That information needs to be boiled up to them so that they can make the right strategic decisions. A second part of what you just talked about too is context, right? So people who are high context like myself, is why, right? That's all. I can figure out the what, but I need to understand the why. Well, if my job is I'm a DevOps engineer and I'm building pipelines and I'm doing this, having that tied back to that eventually to that strategic theme that I'm working on helps me understand what's going on, right? So as a strategic theme, if you're working at a healthcare company, a strategic theme might be to reduce the cost of healthcare. To understand that, right, I can get more meaning out of my life and my work, knowing that what I'm doing is contributing to improving healthcare, right? So I think those are a couple of things that you touched on that people don't really think about. How does that relate to? So the last topic that I wanted to talk about is, this sounds really exciting that we're on the cusp of getting some really cool stuff in AI. But the question is, when can I start using it, and what's really in it for me? What can I get out of that?
So maybe I'll take it. So you can already start using AI. I'll have to use our own example, the ValueEdge platform that is already based on AI correlations, and we at the moment we provide a solution for root cause analysis where you can really drill down into the hidden, and I always talk about the hidden parameters, and I think that this is a comment that is right in general, because things that we have in our own mind as correlated, like number of defects per team, number of defects per feature, we probably already have a graph on our dashboard which can really present that. But why do we have this graph? Because we have in our own mind the correlation between these. The advantage of AI in this world would be to uncover the hidden correlations, the things that we could not think about. For example, defects that we started working on Friday afternoon are high. We will likely to get reopened later on, which is a waste time if we talk about VSM. All right. So these might be hidden correlations. Here I gave some example that might make some sense, but we can think about thousands of other correlations that are really hidden, and a human being without the ability to scan thousands of data points would not even be able to tell. So ValueEdge as a platform that is based on AI can already provide that. So our customers on the SaaS platform can already do that, and I guess we'll see a lot more in the direction of AI. So if the answer is the time is now, and it will just become a lot more, as Udi said. This is just the beginning, and as much as we train those systems, as much as we get more data, more types of industries and organizations and types of decisions that we need to take based on AI, the data will grow up, the training of the system will grow up, and we'll see more and more capabilities and analytic options on this world.
Yeah.
So
and maybe to add to that, I think, on one hand, we are talking about AI and introducing a lot of new capabilities to the platform. On another dimension, we are saying, okay, we are getting a lot of different personas on the same platform, not all of them with the same technical skills. I expect AI, or actually I expect us who are implementing it, to make sure that the users can actually benefit from that. And I think making sure that the system is more accessible and easier to converse with in an NLP manner. So I can just type in whatever I want to see in my dashboard, for example, and get it without the need to go to the help and understand how filtering works, and without the need to play with the widgets. So I think that in parallel to adding all these kind of capabilities into the products, platforms, whatever, we also need to think about the learning curve of the users and make it as easy as we can. And I think it's maybe the first time that we can see a place where we see an exponential growth in terms of feature functionality, but also an increased, I would say, user experience or usability or reducing the time to value. Again, based on the same principles of AI, making sure that customers and users are aware of these, or even without being aware of the new functionality, they can get the most out of the platform. And I think this is another challenge that we are looking at exactly these days.
So I got to tell you that on the topic of what's in it for me. So anybody who's ever been on an RCA or root cause analysis all hands call, I just got excited by what Oren was talking about, right? To not be on this call for 8, 10, 12 hours straight, where realistically, I maybe contributed like 2 minutes out of that, and having to be on those call with 30, 40, 50 people. I think that's what's in it for me, right? is to not be on those calls. Well, any last parting thoughts that you guys want to talk about on the topic of AI and value stream management before we adjourn?
So maybe.
No,
Go ahead.
I think one thing we talked about the processes and optimization. I think, when we talk about value stream, one word pops into mind, and that's value. And I think it's still kind of the holy grail in the VSM industry, how you define value, how you track it, and what you need to do in order to improve it. I think this is not sure if the next or the next step, but once we start applying AI into that and saying, okay, if you go in this direction, and this is what you're aiming, whether it's to get more money, higher customer satisfaction, higher adoption rate, whatever. So once we can use AI to help us predict not just the pace of the release and the quality, but also the value that we will get out of it, that will be the next step forward, and I'm waiting for that.
Awesome. Oren?
And I think talking about personas, there will be some personas that will get somehow eliminated, or their jobs will be redefined. If you take, for example, and forgive me, all the project managers, AI might be able to do planning better than a human being. Maybe, I don't know, product managers, maybe a smart engine in a couple of months or years or minutes will be able to make a roadmap planning better than I or Rudy can do. However, I think that it will be limited first to the amount of data and training, but then the human advantage will remain there, because eventually we talk to human. Our users are not machines. Our users are not AI. They have, if you will, emotional intelligence, and here we'll always need to have someone that will make the optimization not just based on the best or the most optimal planning for the roadmap or for the feature delivery. It will eventually go down to teams, to relationships between people, and these things might take longer time that we can somehow automate with algorithms.
Well, I think AI being able to take over the mundane and the painful, the stuff that we really hate doing, I think is absolutely exciting. So guys, I want to thank you both for taking the time today to talk with us. I thoroughly enjoyed the session. I hope you did too. And I want to encourage everybody to be on the lookout for our next session. Our next session is going to be called The Future of Test Automation, where I'm going to be talking with one of my peers about the topic of test automation. Where do we see it going in the future? What innovations do we think are coming down the pipe, and kind of have this forward-looking view on that. Thanks again, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
If you liked the video, please click the like button. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel so that you get notified when we release new videos.